It's the astrologer Lovelxce, and I'm way overdue for a fight reading. Today, I'll be looking at who the stars describe will be the likely winner and why. Let's get into it. YouTuber boxer Jake Paul is scheduled to box Mike Tyson on July 20th. Tyson made clear this was an exhibitionist fight, not an official fight for the records. Tyson is 58 and Paul is 27 years old, as Yahoo Sports described it. Basically, this will be a fight between a YouTuber and a guy old enough to describe his video as a YouTube, end quote. Notable British boxer Dave Allen believes the fight is dangerous for Tyson at his age. Mike Tyson is one of the greatest heavyweights that has ever lived, but at 58 years of age, he shouldn't be getting hit. Jake Paul is a young man, he's in shape, and he's ended up being a half-decent professional boxing prospect. So for me, it's dangerous and it shouldn't be happening, end quote. Talksport reports, in an article for The Conversation, senior lecturer in medicine at Anglia Ruskin University, Stephen Hughes, highlighted the potentially fatal injuries Tyson could suffer against Paul. As he is an older man and recovering alcoholic, they state, damn, that's pretty blunt. Iron Mike is at risk of suffering a subdural hematoma, which is the tearing of veins in the brain. In older people, the brain tends to lose volume, Hughes explained. This lengthens the bridging veins and makes them more vulnerable to rupture. Talksport also says, the 57-year-old is also a higher risk when it comes to several heart conditions that could be brought on by overtraining for his comeback fight. Tyson made a statement that he is scared to death to fight Paul, not because of the age difference, but stated he is always this way before a fight. People found the statement bizarre to say before they anticipated fight. I am referencing a chart on the left that I've created for this fight, observing the planets so we can see who is likely to win. Jake Paul is the moon in Pisces. Tyson is Saturn in Pisces. Victory in general for Jake is Jupiter in the 10th house. Victory in general for Tyson is Mercury in the 4th house. And finally, victory specifically concerning competitions for Jake is the Sun, and the same for Tyson is again Saturn. Mars, fittingly, a planet indicating fighting and violence, will describe the fight itself as ruler of the 5th house. This seems more serious than the Mark Zuckerberg and Elon Musk planned fight. I may do a video on that. Nevertheless, here there are strong indications of the fight happening. Mars, trine the ascendant, shows a fight coming Paul's way, and since we are asking about the one with him and Tyson, this should show it happening. The moon, Jake's planet, and Mars are moving to join Tyson's planet, Saturn, by conjunction. This is literally violence and competitive sport coming Tyson's way from Paul. If the fight did not happen, I would be surprised, especially considering it's slated to stream on Netflix as the first live boxing match there. But there are things about Tyson I will speak about later that could challenge all of this. I'll briefly describe how each planet shows each fighter. Disclaimer, I don't know much about boxing at all, but I would think as the moon he'd have some fluid, smooth movements, moving quickly. The moon itself isn't strong in this chart though, so one bad indication for Jake. However, the moon is joined to some powerful fixed stars, and so is the ascendant, the 1st house. So somehow he is very empowered, and this likely negates the weakness I see. There are other things that make me believe he will not be a weak opponent for Tyson. I see Jake intimidated, but he also worships Tyson. Tyson is Saturn, which is very appropriate as Saturn represents older men. This to me shows his seniority. He's taking the fight seriously, but this representation could have negative implications. Will he move too slow, or will he be restrained and holding back? Fortunately for Tyson, his planet is much stronger than Jake's, and he should be a formidable opponent to some degree. And the strength comes from his long experience in fighting, as Saturn would imply, and as you might expect. Some people are questioning his stamina for the fight, but I wonder if Saturn, which relates to long-standing things, says he will fare well in this regard. I don't really see that Tyson feels any particular way about Jake. He is apathetic. What I see more is an enthusiasm and great interest in this fight, and the money and attention it will bring. A big payday indeed is shown by Jupiter, a sign of wealth, and Uranus in the 5th house, the house that represents fighting for Tyson. Tyson's statements reported by Complex support this. Tyson blatantly stated he's fighting for money, and he's happy to fight either Logan because of the great attention and money it will bring. There is a warning here though, that this money grab attempt could have some physical consequences indeed. Getting straight to it, I see a lot of glory ahead for Jake and victory. I mentioned earlier for Jake, the sun shows his ability to win this fight more specifically. The sun in Aries in the 10th house is a very powerful indication for Jake. This looks like victorious winning energy to me, or at the least, the exhibition should show Jake looking good in this fight. I'm also getting bragging rights energy about this fight. This is to show what he can do. The aspect, Mars sextile Jupiter, is another good sign of a win for Jake, and that this win will elevate his fame and increase his fan base. Paul said about his own chances, Daily Sports reports. Paul believes that the chances in the fight are even, and he can withstand punches from Iron Mike. It's 50-50. To the people who think I can't win, I'm younger, faster, sharper, and I can punch just as hard as he can. I can take his punches, Paul said, quoted by Michael Benson. Lastly, a significant point in the chart's victory lies at 6 degrees Aries. Aries is owned by Mars, which represents Jake competing, and is another whisper of a win, especially with Mars sextile Jupiter. Why the opponent loses? There are signs of a loss for Tyson. There is nothing in the chart that can compete with what I'm seeing for Jake. Tyson's planet to potentially indicate victory is Mercury, and Mercury is retrograde. Retrogradation isn't good and strongly negates a win. The South Node, a marker of damage, and in a chart like this, the marker of a loss, falls in Tyson's 10th house in Libra. This is another strong indication of a loss. There is even a chance with Mercury being retrograde that Tyson changes his mind about fighting, and it would be due to health reasons because Mercury is related to Tyson's health in this chart. But Tyson seems committed to the bag. I think this may be unlikely. It would probably have to be really bad for him to drop. If he does not change his mind, then it could show that this fight was some sort of mistake for the same reasons. Then if none of that happens, then I see this fight would be a great mistake towards his reputation. Concerning signs, I do have some concern about the fight for Tyson's health, especially seeing the real concerns online that I mentioned some of earlier. Mercury is moving towards the sun, and the sun represents Paul's potential victory. This is another damaging indication, and yet another sign of a loss, likely due to health issues. I hope the only thing here lost is the game, and that this aspect does not show Tyson being seriously hurt. But Mercury being in Aries and Mars, a violent planet, joining Saturn, does warn of misfortune experienced because of this fight with Jake Paul. Mercury in Aries as well, retrograde, can show damage related to the head as well, as Aries represents the head as a physical body part. Nevertheless, I do believe Jake wins, or at least a draw may happen. This fight really appears to be a publicity stunt for Paul, and to increase his standing and fame as a boxer. It's all about him and to make him look good. Lastly, Neptune at the 10th house cusp commands attention, hinting at confusion, possible deception, and illusions concerning victory. I have observed significant sentiment of people saying if Tyson loses, the game must be rigged. I could be wrong, but that's my astrological take on the fight of Paul versus Tyson. Let's see how this plays out, and I hope no one gets hurt too bad.